Recording in progress.
Okay, I'm muted, so you can make sound for a few seconds or so.
I'm sorry, what?
I'm muted, so you can make a few sounds until they start talking, please.
Oh, okay. Let me feed them. Well, let me get, I gotta bring in the pot. Oh my goodness. This thing is so heavy.
Didn't know you were going out for that. Sorry.
Good evening, everyone. This is Michelle Battle with Battle Law. I am the land use and zoning attorney representing the Potts family in connection with the proposed rezoning of their family farm. from AR to CRS to allow for the development of 150 single-family detached homes. We are still letting people into the meeting, so we will continue to do so. My intent here is to go ahead and get started. Just some ground rules for this evening. The meeting will last approximately an hour, just so that you have some sense of what our start and stop time is this evening. I actually have 2 meetings this evening. It's the end of the year, so it's a little crazy. That being said, if we need to extend the time, I can work that to probably about an extra 5 or 10 minutes, but otherwise we will try to stop on time. Everyone is on mute, and I will ask everybody to stay on mute. When I complete the presentation, I will open it up to questions. You can use the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen. It is in, I believe, the React at the bottom, and that allows you to raise your hand. If for some reason you can't access that and you simply put yourself on the screen, unmute your video, I will take questions in the order that I see either hands raised or video screens come on. And then I will ask you to unmute yourself. I'll ask everybody to limit themselves to 1 or 2 questions. We have quite a few people on tonight, so we want to try and make sure that everybody has an opportunity to speak that so desires this evening. And I would ask you to remember, I know there are a number of people on here who are not supportive of the project. I understand that, but I want to make sure that we're not overly redundant in the comments so that everybody gets an opportunity to speak. I have, it's no problem to me if you say the same thing as a person before you, but we just want to make sure that if people want to speak, they have that opportunity. And then once you ask your initial question, if we have time, we'll go back and we will ask anybody who has an additional comment or question to unmute themselves, and they can ask their follow-up question. But again, we'd like to make sure that everybody at least gets the opportunity to make a comment or ask their initial question. So with that, I'll go ahead and get started with the presentation. I'm going to take myself off video as I'll be turning my head to the side. And so hopefully that will go smoothly. So the first thing, actually, before I do that, can you all hear me? If you can use the raise hand feature, that would be great. If not, I will unmute just so. Okay, I see some hands down there. Fabulous. Okay, looks like we're doing good tonight. All right. So many of you all have been to a number of these meetings with regards to this particular property. I don't know that I really have anything new to add, but I do just want to kind of run through the project and kind of how we've gotten to this moment. The subject property is located here off of Walker Road with frontage on both Walker and Ebenezer Road. If you're familiar with where Potts Road is that comes out, that's around the area where the property starts as it moves down Ebenezer Road. You can see we are south of Heritage High School and Highway 138. This is the property here again. You can see here again, Potts Road coming out approximately here off of the site. We also, again, are off of Walker Road where we have some frontage and the main house. You can come down the driveway into the space here. This is the county zoning map. This was the land use map. Our land use designation is for medium density. This is the zoning map. We are currently zoned AR. And this is where this project started. As you all know, D.R. Horton had been proceeding with this particular project. They had proceeded with a plan that showed 205 lots. After discussions with the community, they came back, they dropped a few lots to try and address some issues. This is, at least to my understanding, I was not involved in the project at that time. and they dropped to 199 lot plan. Later, they continued to make adjustments, putting in some buffers around the perimeter of the site, and dropped to 193 lots. The plan that was shown when I came to be involved in the project was the one where the total number of units dropped to 175. We provided additional buffers around the southern portion of the property next to some of the property owners down on that side who had requested that additional protection. We also had the buffers along the perimeter on the north side. And this was the plan that was shown initially at the Planning Commission meeting. After the Planning Commission meeting, there was a meeting that I held, well, I won't say that I held, but a meeting that was scheduled by Chris Curran with Chris Wheeler in the planning department, the planning director, along with Ken Wood and myself. We had a meeting in mid-October in which it was discussed some of the additional concerns that had been raised, particularly about the area in which we had multiple, and these were actually detention ponds. It was not all sensitive areas, but some of the detention facilities were in this area, or actually still are in this area, along with the streams. And there was a request to remove much of the lots that were kind of surrounding this area in order to give more protection environmentally to the area that was more environmentally sensitive. And so with that, we had already looked at dropping the number of lots to 150 lots. I know during the course of that meeting, Mr. Curran indicated that the community had a desire to drop to 100 lots. As I advised him at that time, he had presented that information to Ken Wood, our engineer, and we had indicated that the family was not in a position or willing to drop to 100 lots. We feel that we are well below the allowed medium density that is applicable to the site, and that based on that, they were willing to drop to 150 lots. And so that is what we proceeded to do. We dropped to 150 lots. We opened up more of the green space areas around the sensitive areas so that the buffers are well beyond the 75-foot buffer required by the county. Additionally, we opened up larger green spaces along the southern portion. You can see here the pool and cabana and the green space area at the top, where basically until you get to the power line, you really just see that amenity area. You don't see as many of the homes as you're coming into the site. And we did some reconfiguration of some of the street layout. And then additionally, one of the areas adjacent to, there's a home along in this space right past Potts Road, where we also opened all of that up into green space as well, more closely aligned with that property. And then we created some new pocket park areas on the site as well. So all in all, we've got over 47, almost half of the site, but certainly 47.98% of the site is conservation in green space area, which is well above what the requirements are for the property. Our density is at a total of 1.32 lots per acre. And even that is, again, below what is required on the site, adjusted for the improvements and the taking out the green space areas. We're at 1.45, and then the maximum density allowed is 3.1. So, you know, again, we are below what the density requirements are. I think at the other project, at the planning commission meeting, I also mentioned these are minimum 10,000 square foot lots. And there are multiple subdivisions within this area that have 10,000 square foot lots. I get that there's some concern about the quality of some of the subdivisions that are at that size. Yet we believe that with the restrictions placed on the property or proposed on the property by the planning staff, that we will be able to present a quality development that is certainly able to give a variety of different housing options, price points within this community to others who would desire to live here. These are some of the elevations, and please understand that we don't have a builder currently in line. These are just some ideas of what the homes may look like. There was a request to have some single family ranch style homes within the community to make certain that if there are seniors or those who have disabilities that may want to live in this community, that they would have a one-story unit available. These are some of the elevations that we just pulled for two-story units and with a mixture of hardy plank, brick, and other fiber cementatious type materials. We can have more decorative garage doors, color on the doors, different color palettes, things of that nature that builders may so desire. But these are just some kind of sample elevations that we have put forth with regards to the project. In terms of the proposed conditions, I believe these are the last set of conditions that were provided by staff. We went over these just to make sure that we were consistent with the plan that was submitted to them on November 1st. So the first proposed condition that you saw at the Board of Commissioners meeting, we've added to that the site will be in general conformity with the site plan prepared by Planners and Engineers Collaborative dated April 30th, 2024, last revised November 1st, 2024. That was to bring the plan up to date, but it was clear that it is the plan that has the 150 lots. The applicant will provide a traffic impact study. We've actually done a traffic impact study. However, to the extent that anything else is required by the county or any updated plan is required, that will be submitted. The next requirement was that the applicant provide proof of sewer capacity. 4, that the site be restricted to no more than 150 lots. That there be, number 5, a mandatory HOA. Number 6, that there would be a rental restriction of no more than 5% of all of the homes, which the homeowners association will be required to enforce, and the county will have the ability to make sure that to the extent that there's any belief that it's being exceeded, that would be a code enforcement violation on the HOA. That all single family residential units will have a 2-car garage, that we're providing a 5-foot sidewalk along at least one side of the proposed internal streets, and that sidewalks will be separated from the curb by a tree lawn, basically a grass strip not less than 5 feet wide, planted with shade trees. Number 9, that we would provide a 5-foot concrete sidewalk along the frontages of Walker Road and Ebenezer, and that a strip of grass, again, the grass strip will be at least a minimum of 4 feet along the public sidewalks. That all grassed areas in the front and side yards will be sodded. All utilities will be placed underground. Natural vegetation shall remain on the property until the issuance of the development permit. Number 13, all sides of the proposed buildings shall consist of brick, stone, cementatious siding, or real lath or Portland stucco from ground to eaves with brick, stone, cedar shake, real stucco, painted wood siding, cementatious siding to be used as accents. Metal siding, vinyl siding, metal canopies, and exposed standard concrete brick are prohibited, and soffits, however, may be constructed of vinyl. Number 14, that the street lights are to be provided along every side of every street in accordance with the street lighting plan approved by the Rockdale County Department of Transportation and the appropriate power company for the area. That extra language was added just to add some clarity. The storm detention pond shall be screened from view from the adjacent residential properties. Screening plans shall be subject to review and approval of the Director of Planning and Development. Number 16, that the development shall include a cabana, pool, pocket parks within the interior. Any structures in the amenity areas will be constructed using exterior building materials that complement the structures adjacent to residential structures. The amenity areas may be in a single area or in multiple areas, and amenity areas shall be accessible by 5-foot wide concrete sidewalks. We also added that the builder shall provide both ranch and 2-story homes within the proposed subdivision. Minimum square footage for the ranch homes will be 1,600 square feet, and the minimum square footage for the 2-story homes will be 2,000 square feet. We also indicated a willingness to do a minimum stagger of 2.5 feet for every other lot, and we certainly are accepting of that to the extent that that condition is also added by staff. Before we start into the question and answer period, I did want to point out a couple of things, and let me let somebody in. I wanted to point out a couple of things. I know that questions have been raised with regards to what I would consider to be land development related challenges that have been raised by Mr. Curran and George Kalichek with regards to the watershed basin and I guess some head walls that they were mentioning. I did have another conversation with Kabah Johnson this afternoon, the Deputy Director in Stormwater. He did provide me with the watershed map for Rockdale County. There are watersheds obviously throughout the county. If this project is approved, and whoever develops this property for whatever, they will be required to do a hydrology study. That hydrology study will have to indicate how water is being detained and released at a rate slower than what it is now around the environmentally sensitive areas. That's what the detention ponds are for. The water that is hitting this project now may be causing flooding and other issues in the area, but the detention ponds should be designed such as to address those types of issues. Ken Wood with Planners and Engineers is here this evening and can assist with answering questions around that particular issue, but we believe that that is a land development issue that has to be addressed in the hydrology study. That hydrology study would be available to each and every one on this call and anybody else in the area as it is public record and can be reviewed and commented on prior to the issuance of the LDP. With regards to any other environmental issues on the site, we also know that to the extent that anything comes up during the development of the site, that if that results in the number of lots having to be reduced in order to avoid environmentally sensitive issues or to address issues that are raised by the Rockdale staff, then that is where adjustments will at that point have to be made. What we've tried to do on the site plan is to leave plenty of buffering around the perimeter, particularly on the north and western side of the property, as well as along on the eastern side of the property as shown, and then on the southern boundary of the property where you've got homeowners that have requested that additional protection. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and open up to questions. And I see that Ms. Smith has her hand up first. So I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself, Ms. Susan.
Hi, Ms. Battle. I appreciate you going over this again. My main concern is that we are here today to hear the proposal yet again, but not to really hear what the community is concerned about. Some things have been addressed by my neighbor, and I respect him immensely, Chris Curran, and meetings were had, and a number was thrown out there. I did not agree with that number because my property is impacted on two sides for this particular development opportunity.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, what I am concerned about is a couple of things. First and foremost, the number of homes. I think we're all on here concerned about the number of homes. The Planning and Zoning Committee has consistently offered up 60 every single time this has come up. And it sounds like the family is not willing to even entertain that. Why? Because we heard directly from Mr. Wood at the last Planning and Zoning Committee meeting that can't make money that way. Well, this is not a starter home community. This community is a very established community. The homes are very large. Yes, there are subdivisions here, but this would be double the size of any subdivisions around us. So hence the concern about the number of homes and the impact that it will have on our local streets, our water and sewage, our electric, even our internet, all the things, right? So what is it that you guys are really going to listen to us today about with reference to this? Because being someone who's moved out here for specifically a rural aspect, I'm not saying don't sell the property. Absolutely not. I'm all on board with the Potts family being able to sell the property, but not selling it in this manner where rezoning, will have to change what kind of capacity of homes is entertained upon it. So what are we here today to discuss? Are you here just to hear what we have to say? Are we going to really do something about what you hear with the comments today? What is the end result that you would like to get from this based on what you hear that I've just explained and that others will explain to you as we continue the meeting?
Yes, ma'am. So I will say this, and I try to be very transparent and very candid, Ms. Smith, and I don't like to waste people's time, truthfully, because time is precious. The Potts family feels that the number of lots that they are proposing is well below what the current land use designation for this area allows. It is in the center of the county where the county has indicated a desire to have additional growth on either end because of the watershed and rock issues. There's less development in those spaces. I know that there are many who disagree with the comprehensive plan, but we work with what we have in front of us today. And they've been dealing with this, I guess, since 2021. They feel that, they have given a number of lots up. These days, when people are selling property to land developers, most of them are not selling the land by the acre. The developers and the builders are building and buying it based on the number of units that they can get on the property. And I know that seems unfair to many because the feeling is, well, but we don't want that many lots. And I think that there is a tension there that I can't resolve for us, to be quite honest. They feel that they have given over 50 lots off of this site from what was originally proposed. That does, yes, impact them financially. And at this point, they are not willing to go less than the 150 lots. And that was, information was provided to Mr. Curran on that call. I know that he had indicated 100 units. This is the first time I'm hearing about 60 personally. I was in attendance at the Planning Commission meeting that was most recently held. I was not at the Board of Commissioners meeting. My associate, Josh Mahoney, was there, but I was not aware of the 60 number. But I know that we would not be able or willing, should I say, not willing to drop to 60 lots. And I think that just means that at the end of the day, the Board of Commissioners is going to have to decide one way or the other. We are asking for a final decision next week, mainly because we feel like this is dragged on for this community and for the family long enough, and that we need to just have a decision made. It's either yes or no, because I don't know that we're ever going to be able to agree on the total number of lots, because I can tell you they're not willing to budge below the 150. So that's the most honest answer I can give you. And so tonight, kind of what do we think we might be able to accomplish? And I'll ask you to unmute yourself, Ms. Smith, so we can have dialogue. But I think that to the extent that there are things within the interior outside of the lot count, if there are things that we can do to address, continue to address issues within the interior, Ken is on the line now, and we can work to try and address those issues prior to the vote next week, and to update the site plan and provide that to those who are on the call and to anybody else that would have interest in it to circulate that. But otherwise, honestly, I was a little surprised that we were asked to have the follow-up meeting so close to the vote. At this point, it was our intent to have a meeting earlier, and I guess I was confused as to whether or not that meeting would proceed after the meeting that we had with Mr. Curran. So that was apparently my misunderstanding after Commissioner or Chairman Oz asked for the additional meeting, because quite honestly, nothing has really changed from our perspective since the Board of Commissioners meeting that was held last month. I'm not sure if you had a follow-up to that.
I did. And thank you very much. I appreciate the candor, as always, and the professionalism around it. I do know that a lot of the changes with offering up more green space all happened at one side of the property, and that doesn't impact my side. And the homes are jammed up against both sides of my property that touch it.
So you're right in this area here?
I'm at 1800, so you see the immediate two sides. So
let me make sure
it's an odd shaped property.
Are you right here?
I can't tell where to.
Hold on. Let me see if I can get a better color here. Hold on. My goodness. Some days my abilities to work my thing here is not as great as I'd like it to be. Okay. So now it's not going to let me do anything. What the heck? Let's try it one more time.
So it's the odd shaped property that is directly impacted. If you're looking at the image, the side of the property on the top right.
Are you on you're on the Walker side?
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then are you at closer to Ebenezer and Walker, or on the other side?
Right where your pointer was. It's that odd shaped property right there. It's not really a triangle.
Does it say above the reconfigured street? Are you near the corner of Ebenezer and Walker?
No, I am on Walker Road. If you move your pointer to the right a little tiny bit, that property right there, okay. That is me.
Right here? Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. And I believe, let me let somebody in. Ken, you can unmute yourself. I believe that the buffer over here is well over 50 feet on this side.
On the east side, they're all 100.
On which side? The east side?
What about the east side?
Okay. What about the side that's adjacent to her?
Isn't she on the east side next to the cul-de-sac lots underneath where it says reconfigured street?
No, I think she's on the other side.
Oh, on the west side.
Ms. Smith, I just want to make sure. Ms. Smith, I'm going to unmute you again, or you can stay unmuted. Don't mute yourself.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah, I thought
I am on the other side, Ken. The other side. See where the little sign is? It says pool and cabana.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's where I thought you were. But I thought you said east. Yeah, and so the buffer with the lots that are against there on the east side, those are 80 feet away to the lots, from the lots, and then it's 110 feet on the south. So 110 on the south to the back of the lots, and then 80 feet on the other one to the lots. We could probably get that one to 100 too, from 80.
It needs to be as much as possible, because no offense, but as a person who's owned livestock all her life, people are really curious about livestock. I do not want people to be coming up to my fence line and trying to mess with my livestock. Not to mention all the other things that come with it, the parties, the fireworks during the 4th of July, all those other things. You guys have to realize that folks around here with animals and livestock, all of that impacts. So the more people you bring in and more opportunity for those kind of interruptions during a normal life, it impacts more than
Understood.
just the people. So,
Understood.
I know people think, oh, it's just livestock, whatever, but to me, it matters. And that's the whole reason I moved here. And I would hate to say, sorry, Rockdale, I'm going to have to move and take the good money that I make and give to the county and my taxes and my retail somewhere else because of, quote unquote, people think progress is building developments in a community, which it is not. Progress does not equal developments and more homes. Progress means making and finding ways to be able to better the folks in the community. So I'm going to be quiet because I know others have things to say. I just appreciate you hearing me and hearing my concerns.
Okay, I just want to, I'm making sure, okay, all right. So Ken, on the side, just to be real clear, on what I'm looking at being the west side, the east side of the property above where the reconfigured street words are, the buffer along there right now, you said is 80 or 100 on both?
No, it's 100.
It's 100.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's 100, and at the top end of it, I guess I don't know where the livestock is. Is it closer down, Ms. Smith, to the southern portion?
So she's on the left, closer to Pool and Cabana, where we thought she was originally on the west, the long driveway that goes to the back.
Ah, okay. When I'm looking at the site plan,
and so the lots, so those lots that are the 1 through 8, those are the 80-foot buffer. We probably need to get that to 100, and then but the buffer on the bottom, that's like 110-ish, 115, somewhere in there.
Okay. So Miss Smith, then what we can do is we can revise the site plan to show that we will do. Did I lose you all? That we will do 100-foot buffer on that side.
And I still don't approve of that, but I appreciate you trying. I appreciate you trying.
Okay. Well, we can agree to put in, Ken, I think, to do the 100-foot buffer on that side. Let's try and figure out how to make that happen.
Yes.
All right. I know that didn't get you all the where you wanted to go, and it certainly doesn't get you to 60 units.
No, it doesn't get me there at all. And I'm very concerned about the types of homes because, again, we just had 2 beautiful homes at the corner of Ebenezer and Walker built, and they are $700,000 homes. Brick, that is the type of home that is appropriate for this area of the community, not what is being proposed to be built. And it's not a starter home community. I'm just going to say it again, and I promise I'll be quiet now.
Okay, thank you. Can we have the next person hand raised? I don't see a hand raised. Okay, Mr. Woodall, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm actually on the corner of Walker and Ebenezer, directly across from those 2 new houses that were just mentioned. I do have a question, though, on the signs that were put out. I saw D.R. Horton on those signs, and that's kind of curious to me. I mean, I thought Horton was gone because
they were. The problem was, I apologize. We went back and changed that. We are the applicant. The Potts family is bringing the application. That was a holdover sign. So we had initially been hired by Horton a while ago to do this. And then when they dropped out, we continued on. But unfortunately, my staff, when they put out the sign, I didn't realize that it said Horton on the sign. So I had them go back and take that off because that's not who the applicant is anymore.
Yeah, because I think there's 2 concerns for a lot of people, certainly me, is not just the density of the housing, but the quality of the housing. And Horton has a terrible reputation for quality and completing their developments and completing them in a way that's not going to turn into a slum. There's a lot of promises. It seems like that we're talking about road use and utility use and the impacts on all the infrastructure around. So let's say that this zoning is approved and that they do go forward with the CSR, CRS. I'm sorry.
CRS.
Yeah, and they go forward and they grant you this zoning, but then the traffic study comes back and says, yeah, that's not going to work. Oh, okay, we'll just back off and not do the development. I mean, is that what happens? Or they say, oh, the water runoff is going to damage the watershed. Oh, well, yeah, our bad. So yeah, okay, yeah, never mind. We'll just walk away. I mean, so what happens with that when these studies come back and say that this is not a viable development, especially when you consider all the other developments that are going on in the immediate area, adding to the traffic, adding to the load on the schools and on the utilities, because they seem to only do a land use or school study or road use or something like that, as if they're the only development that's going forward. But there are other developments also going forward or that have already been approved. And these studies seem to look at it in a bubble, as if it's the only thing happening. But there's a lot of other stuff happening. I yield.
Mm-hmm. So I can tell you that the traffic study, whenever they do a traffic study, they're required to review various intersections. So clearly the intersection at Ebenezer and Walker, probably the ones up closer to 138. Those are the intersections that they would be reviewing, as well as the traffic counts within the area. But they are required to take into consideration other current and future development that may be coming into the area. So they are able to collect that information and put that into their study. The transportation department is requiring the traffic study, and that would be submitted. If the traffic study comes back and says, for example, that you got to put in, let's say it says that you have to put in a roundabout. Well, at that point, if whoever the builder is decides, or developer decides, you know what, that's too much money to be spent, they won't proceed with getting their LDP, because they will not be able to get their LDP, their land disturbance permit, without providing a plan that shows that roundabout. That's just an example. So we're from a developer builder perspective, we're in kind of a very preliminary stage. The zoning is the pretty picture. Let's just be for real. It's the pretty picture. We've got some sense because the engineer and planning and engineers has done some site recognizance, I'll call it, due diligence, to look at what challenges there may be on the site, which is how we got all the information concerning the streams and where we think the detention ponds and that kind of stuff will be. But they have not done their hydrology study. That will be required, and it will have to satisfy the county before any development can in fact take place, before they can get that LDP. So most of the builders and developers, they are not buying the property until they get their land disturbance permit. And the reason for that is they want to know what all the things are that they're going to have to do in order to determine what the cost is going to be to build out. And so I don't know certainly none of my clients are buying what we call lots in the raw, where they have not gotten at least their land disturbance permit. So there wouldn't be any dirt moved, and the Potts family would basically be still sitting here with this property if, in fact, the traffic study or the hydrology study or any other things that Rockdale County would require based on the current code, if they can't comply with it, or if there's some issue with it that they can't get around, then in all likelihood, that buyer would not buy, because they're not going to buy a problem that they can't fix.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Nixon, I'll go to you next.
Good afternoon, and I'm actually on my husband's phone. It's Mrs. Nixon.
No problem, Mrs. Nixon. Sorry about that.
No problem. So listening to that last question and comment, it kind of makes me ask the question, why would a company even attempt to purchase land when they don't have those studies in front of them. It seems as though we're trying to put the cart in front of the horse here, because I live on Walker Road. In fact, I live across from the Potts land that is on Walker Road. And sidebar, no one has ever approached me from any company or representative of the Potts family to get, have a conversation with me in regards to, what we think about it, what we feel, our views, our concerns, or anything. And I know that that has been a narrative that has been put out to the community in several of the meetings that I have been to, and that is definitely a false narrative. We've been here for 13 years now, and no one has ever approached us to ask us, what our thoughts were on the impending rezoning and the impact it would have on us. So for me, right off the bat, it has a hint of dishonesty and not giving full transparency as to what's going on. I don't know, did you pick and choose the people that you wanted to talk to, or what that process was? And that was my sidebar. But back to the infrastructure portion of it, it seems to me that it would be a better use of time to look at those infrastructure items and then say, our preliminary studies say that we can't handle this because, as someone who lives on Walker Road, this street gets congested if there's, when school gets out, the first few weeks of school, I can't get out of my driveway. There's a school play. There's any type of school activity, the traffic that, and we just have one school sitting on Walker Road. I realize that there's some on Ebenezer on 138, but just the school there on Sims Elementary on Walker, the impact from just that traffic alone backs up the street. And so I can't even fathom what adding, 100 plus houses to this infrastructure would even, I can't even imagine what that's going to look like. And then lastly, I understand when we're talking about a school's capacity to be able to house a certain number of kids. I understand that, the number that the state of Georgia, that the county has said, that is the limit for the classrooms. That's a number, that's an ideal number, but as someone who works in the school system, I can tell you now our classrooms are already crowded. We already have a shortage of teachers. I am a substitute teacher in the county, and I could work every day if I wanted to, simply because there is a shortage of teachers. There are not enough teachers to create and to service the students that are here now. So I can't imagine how we're going to add more students to an already, damaged, if you will, infrastructure with the schools. So I don't know where you guys are getting this number, this notion that, the schools are not at capacity. They very much are at capacity. Again, I know paper may say you can have 30 kids in the classroom, but trust me, we have 30 kids in some classrooms. And I, again, work all over the county. And most of the schools that I go to have this issue. So I don't understand how we're to absorb an additional amount of students here in the county. Thank you.
So I will tell you that there has been preliminary studies done already on the site, and I have been a real estate transactional attorney for much longer than I've been a land use and zoning attorney. So I can tell you that the process typically is that the property, the person who is the prospective purchaser of the property has a due diligence period, and most builders and developers obtain a traffic study in addition to environmental study. They hire an engineer. They do kind of all of the preliminary investigations on the site to get some sense as to whether or not they're going to run into major issues or challenges with developing a site. That costs, X number of dollars that they start out the project with. Once they then get the zoning in place, because the bottom line is they don't want to expend, these studies cost, by the time they finish, they're expending well over $100,000 in expense trying to figure out whether they want to actually acquire the property. And so what they typically do is they do their preliminary reviews, they get some sense of whether or not the site is going to work, and then thereafter, they get the zoning in place. And then if the zoning is in place, then they feel comfortable expending more money to do all of the studies that are required by the county, in addition to the things that they require for their own personal due diligence. So there is a tremendous amount of research that is done before the property is actually any dirt moves on the ground. I get the questions and issues concerning the schools. We can only go by the information that we are provided. The state of Georgia has indicated that you cannot turn a zoning down based on the schools. It is not technically something, even the traffic, because those are things that are a responsibility of the county, not the developer. I know that may seem counterintuitive, but at the end of the day, the county and the school boards are responsible for taking care and providing for sufficient space for the schools and for providing for the roads. Now, what happens with the development is that the traffic study will indicate what traffic improvements need to be made by the developer, and the developer will be responsible for making those improvements. The traffic study may also show some improvements that need to be made by the county, and the county would be responsible for making those improvements. So that's the way. This process is pretty cumbersome and sometimes can be complex, but the bottom line is it is a kind of joint effort to get new development in. But thank you for the question. I'm going to move on to Ms. Thomas. Ms. Thomas, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself.
Okay, I wasn't able to unmute it before.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks. I actually don't live on Ebenezer or Walker. I actually live at the corner of Walker and Good. So even though I'm not directly impacted, I am impacted per se. I may not be part of the buffer or any of that, but we are impacted. Just like the lady just now spoke about with the traffic. My biggest concern is the watershed and the flooding that takes place. Every time it rains, I have water issues. Mm-hmm. The street itself is flooded. I don't know if it's the retention. I'm not an engineer, and I don't have a lot of knowledge of what it is. But that's my biggest issue. And I'm concerned because you're saying that the sign said D.R. Horton, and you're saying D.R. Horton is no longer the applicant. You're saying that the Potts family is the applicant.
Yes, ma'am.
So these houses that are being proposed, is it the Potts family is going to be the ones building them?
No, they are still looking to sell the property. I can't say, at this point who they're going to be selling to. Their intent and the law allows them to proceed to request the rezoning of their property. They've got a real estate agent that they are working with that is putting the property out to potential developers, builders who may have an interest in buying the property. And so that is how they've chosen to proceed. It was clear that there were issues with Horton being involved in the matter. And at the end of the day, zoning is not based on who the builder is going to be. I get that there's concern about, specific builders. But the truth of the matter is either the site is appropriate for what is being proposed or it's not. There is no, well, as long as so-and-so builds it, then I'm okay, but if such and such build it, well, then I don't want it rezoned. That is not how the law interprets zoning.
I got you, and I don't think that's the issue. My question is really stemmed from the fact that there is a plan on with the buffering of how many houses are gonna be there. So it's just basically telling us, this is what we, it's gonna happen.
This is what we have proposed. The board of commissioners can say yes or no. But this is what we are proposing. We've tried to address as many of the issues as we felt we could with regards to the project overall. Again, one of the things about property that is undeveloped as large as this tract is that when water hits the ground, it's going wherever it chooses to go. Once the project or any type of development occurs on this site, particularly a residential development, then there will have to be a hydrology study which will provide information with where the water has to go. And the site will be graded in such a way that the water will flow into these detention ponds that will then release the water at a slower rate, which should in fact improve and reduce some of the flooding to the extent that it is coming from this particular piece of property, because they have to deal with not only the water that they will be generating from the new impervious surface that they're putting on it, but they've got to deal with whatever other water issues are currently existing on this site that may be causing challenges to others around them.
Okay, so basically this meeting is just an informational meeting to say this is what it is, basically. It's not really to hear an opinion and to make any changes.
No, we are listening to opinion. If there's something that we can change, like Ms. Smith, mentioned about the buffer, and we're able to accommodate, doing more on the buffer side. But if anybody thought the conversation was, well, if we come to this, they'll decide that they just won't pursue this, then no, that's not where we are. We just want the board to make a decision, but if there are things that we may be able to address tonight, we are happy to listen to those and see if we can address it. Like I said, like the buffer issue, we were able to accommodate going from 80 feet to 100 feet. So that's what we're here for this evening.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Curran, I'm gonna unmute you. Or you can unmute yourself.
Good evening, Ms. Battle.
Good evening.
You speak frequently of this adhering to the land use map. I think it's important for at least the community to express that we don't feel that the land use map as it exists for this area is proper. When it was developed a few years ago, the environmental issues weren't known, so we don't believe it would have been set to that had those issues been known. But agreed, you're just representing your client. What I'd like to know, and also congratulate Ken for yanking 25 houses off of that plan since we last talked. Although Ken, if you're listening, I'm still waiting on those drawings that you said you were going to send to me twice now. What muni code or regulations were being followed when you guys removed those 25 houses? What what's the guidance are you using in that endeavor?
So when we met on our call last month, you indicated that the community wanted to see more green space around the environmentally sensitive areas, including or primarily the areas where the stream buffers were located. And so we removed as many of the homes as we could around that area to provide more buffering. And so that's how the 25 lots were removed, and we kind of reconfigured and tried to make sure that we provided the buffers along the perimeter of the site as well.
Sure. Maybe I wasn't being clear on what I was trying to understand. What municipal code, what professional organizations guidelines were being followed in that endeavor, or was it just you guys trying to make an effort, goodwill or whatever, to remove homes? Because if it's just the engineers and developers, pulling back, congratulations, but that's a bit like the fox watching the hen house, isn't it?
That certainly can be your opinion and your interpretation. The requirement for the stream buffers are being met. That is a minimum requirement of 75 feet. We are well beyond that. So we took instruction from the stream buffer and any other environmentally sensitive area in that space, and we moved away further from that as was requested. So we went beyond what the code in fact requires.
Okay, that's an interesting point, because during our meeting, if you recall, I asked Mr. Wheeler what the county regulations or guidances was for building near the headwaters or watersheds, and he wasn't aware of it at that meeting, but he did get back to me and tell me that they had no such regulations. So I'm not sure that stormwater is the most authoritative point of view on this. It feels like there should be some professionals involved in this, somebody who does this for a living kind of thing.
The professional we went to was the county's deputy director, Mr. Kabah Johnson. I had another conversation with him today.
Right, yeah, you mentioned that.
He indicated that if this gets approved and comes through the land development permitting process through the hydrology study and the other studies that may be required, that they will address whatever the issues are. And so we believe that the county staff is more than capable of handling this particular issue.
Okay, so a hydrology study, is that going to cover areas such as core samples, soil samples to determine the underground structure of this area before carrying forward? Is that what this hydrology study is going to provide information about?
The hydrology study, and Ken can give more breadth to it, but the hydrology study will deal with the different basins that may be represented on this site and where the water is draining to. And then in terms of soil studies and
geotech.
And geotech studies, those will be conducted as well.
Okay, good. Thank you. Regarding the traffic, I'll just echo what everybody else has said about it. I'll add this. Down there at Ebenezer and Stanton, it's an infamously terrible intersection for the community. It floods. It's just a horrible intersection. So quite frankly, if there's a traffic solution that comes up with a roundabout or something that fixes that intersection, I would certainly be on board with applauding that. That said, I'm still concerned about the traffic issues out here. Of course, this is not your problem to solve, but the last issue is on these elevations that are being showed in the renderings here. They all have garages in the front. That's going to be a pretty big sticking point to going forward with whoever inherits these plans, which I know you and I've discussed this about, it doesn't need to have a developer. I just got to be honest with you, though, it feels wrong to be going forward with a plan that is probably not going to be the plan, once a developer is located and signed on, which, again, I don't know why everybody thinks that we have to sell land to a developer. This is not one piece of property. This is owned by multiple people that they're coming together to sell in one lump sum to be more attractive to a developer. But you could sell this like regular people. I know I expressed interest in buying some of this property a few years ago when Mr. Potts passed away. And some of my neighbors have the same feeling. So that's part of what confounds our community is like, we've expressed interest in it. We think there's better ways to handle this thing. We want the property to be sold, but we just have strong opinions about the methodology and where we're going with it. But
Understood.
those are all well documented between there, so I won't beat on those drums. And thank you for listening.
Not a problem.
And apologize for
Mr.
my
Brown.
teams being on us while we're talking.
Not a problem. Thank you. All right. Any other questions this evening? Even though we're a little over, I will hang out for a few more minutes. So we know that, Darren, okay. I ask you to unmute yourself, Mr. Darren.
Yeah, I got bumped off for a little bit. Thank you for holding this meeting. I know one of the questions, it was on my end. It wasn't you guys, it was my end. one of the questions I know that was asked before was, fire department study. Has that been done? Did I miss that? Or what is the status on that? Because I know the fire department and the water supply for hydrants was a big concern.
So we are, as I was saying before, I hate to say it this way, but these are pretty pictures. And the truth of the matter is, you don't get into the meat and potatoes until after you submit for your land disturbance permit. So this project will have to go through a very lengthy process of providing information. It will get reviewed by every department in the county that is a part of the land development department, including fire and safety. So for example, if the fire and safety comes back and says, and I've had this happen in other jurisdictions, well, 2 points of entry is just not sufficient. You're going to have, an additional point of entry. Well, they'll have to figure out how to do that additional point of entry, or they may say you're going to lose lots. So, or you may have stormwater come in and say, your hydrology study is not, up to what we need it to be, or we want you to put additional, detention ponds in this area and this area. And so now you've got to do some reconfiguration. I can tell you that this project would be conditioned on the site plan. So the site plan will be what the site plan is, subject to any modifications that are required because of comments that we receive during the LDP process. So whoever the developer is, if I'm still working with them, then they may have, to lose lots or to reconfigure. And if the reconfiguration is too significant, then they'll have to come back through this process again. So it is just a process. This is I hate to say it because it hasn't been easy, but this is the easy part. It gets harder from here.
Right, I understand that. So, obviously, if this gets passed, it's not like they're breaking ground next week or next year.
Oh, please, no.
I know, right.
They may not break ground until 2026.
Right, but it could be that another developer comes in and hears what we say and agrees with what we say and could change this whole plot. Repaint this whole picture that you got in front of us.
Right. Well, they would have to, one of the conditions that that has been proposed, let me see if I can find my conditions here. The first is that it'll be developed in compliance with that, the CRS in general conformity with the site plan. So if they do anything substantially different on the site plan, they would have to come back through this process. They wouldn't be able, now if they were losing lots, I doubt that they would look at that as a significant. It's only if they are significantly reconfiguring such that it does not reflect what was presented to the community. Then they would have to come back through this process.
But again, like I said, somebody could come back and say, no, I understand what you're saying in the community, and yeah, we're good with doing 75 homes on
They
acre.
very well could. Absolutely. Absolutely.
As long as the pots are satisfied with that.
Absolutely. As they say, as long as the money is right. Yes.
Right. Okay, well, so right now, this is, like you said, it's all just, lack of a better term, smoke and mirror to get it. No, I don't want to say smoke and mirrors because that's.
It's not smoke and mirrors.
No, that's the wrong term. But it's like you said.
Not engraved in
you're trying to
stone,
get-
if that's what you want to say, because the builder has not been selected. That's
Right. Okay, thank you very much.
All right. Ms. Moulton, I'm going to let you be my last question. Cheryl?
Good evening.
Moulton? I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, all. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I have a couple of questions, even though I'm not directly impacted as far as touching the buffers being on Ebenezer or Good, but I am actually off of Good up by Squire Lane. I am in Bent Creek subdivision, and it is, to my understanding, that the Potts Farm, all the water that leaves that property on the southwest corner where you have the four or five retention ponds that come down next to the larger green space. Once that water leaves that property, even though engineerically y'all are planning on slowing that water down, I come from the building world. I understand that when you build a house, it creates 60% more impervious surface runoff. That green space right there is the headwaters, an unnamed tributary that leaves that property, that comes down across Good Road, and that tributary comes into Cowan Lake. That is where the Cowan farm is. That is my backyard. So how are you planning on slowing down all this surface runoff before it comes to us? Because that is the start of the headwaters up there.
Okay. Again, my understanding is that's what will be addressed in the hydrology, but I'm going to let Ken, who's on with us, if he wants to, if he can add anything to that before we do the hydrology study.
I mean, Michelle, if you can pull up the plan, it might help. So we eliminated all of the lots in the center in between the two creeks. So there's no lots there. That's all undisturbed. And really almost all of the bottom part where everything leaves the property is completely undisturbed now. And then we backed away from all the stream buffers a lot more than the regulations require. And so what that's done is it's given us a lot more room to have large stormwater ponds, because controlling runoff is just all about volume. As long as you can control the volume and release it slowly, then you can control the runoff. And so it's we concentrated taking away the additional lots from the center around, because we heard the comments about the headwaters. So we really tried to concentrate the lots that we took away to give a lot more room to the creeks, a lot more room for ponds, so that we can actually make a bigger difference in what we release. So if you're looking at the plan, you can kind of see that center is all undisturbed now. And then we have 3 different ponds in 3 different areas, so that we can basically capture all that water and release it as something that can be tolerated for the downstream conditions. But like Michelle said, I mean, we'll have to run through all the permitting on that. And if for some reason, we're not able to show that significant reduction, we'll have to add even more area and actually lose lots. But that's how we were approaching it, is we were trying to lose the land where it helped the most. Lose the lots where it helped the most. Sorry.
Well, here's another question. From what I understand, you're working with Inline also on their site plan, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I knew that. So both of these projects are on the same agenda. So say you both get approved for CRS zoning, even though it's really medium density or low density, because you get to count overall acreage, not buildable area. So how does this plan coincide coming downstream to Cowan Farms? So y'all are at how many? 170? 150? 150. Okay. So Cowan Farms, I believe, is at 317, 316. So
1.01.
So let me add to this, to your hydrology study. So Potts would be developed. Say Cowan Farms would be developed. Everything that comes through that tributary up there at Potts Farm comes down to us, bypasses Cowan Lake at the toe, and goes through a FEMA floodplain. Goes across McLean's Creek, comes across Honey Creek, and goes all the way down to the monastery at 212. All that is a recorded FEMA floodplain. So in all actuality, Potts would have to be contained at a 90, 100% of their runoff that their poor infrastructure up there contributes to Honey Creek, to Cowan Farms, to the monastery, and so forth, all the way down to Jackson Lake. How are these going to be controlled outside of just a hydrology study?
So for both, I mean, for both of them, we're really talking about the one, but both of them with the reductions in the lot size and everything, I really don't have any, you know, from an engineering standpoint and hydrology and being able to control everything has been pushed so far away from the sensitive areas, and we have so much more to detain in them that I don't have concerns about having downstream issues, because we have so much room that we can hold back whatever water that we need to hold back to make a difference in it. Obviously, the one downstream is a whole lot bigger. It has a whole flood study, dam, you know, it's a whole nother type of thing. But this one coming down from it, that, you know, we took away, you know, almost another 5 acres of area around the streams to where we can have so much room to make a difference for the stormwater. So I'm not as worried about it coming down, because even with the FEMA floodplain, we can make a difference with that.
Well, everything in the topo shows that land falls, I don't know, what, 40, 50 foot, and then comes down into the streams. So here's another question for you. The ponds that are on the southwest side, what acreage do those equate to be able to hold all that water flow downhill?
On the southwest, the 2 southwestern ponds?
Yeah, where the large green space is and where your little note says even further away from the streams. So starting at those ponds, what is the acreage of the 5 ponds?
So it's a little bit deceiving looking into this, because one of them is an existing lake that's
Correct.
in the center. But, you know, the ponds, I mean, the one in the southwest corner is probably about 1.5 acres to 2 acres. The one that's kind of a little bit further up is, you know, just looking at it compared to the lots, is probably just under 1 acre. And then the one on the right side is probably 1 acre, 1.5 acres, something like that. But I'm just going off of, you know, since we don't have engineering plans, just going off of the space we have on typical developments versus this one, we'd have a lot of extra space on this plan at this point with the reduction in the lots than what I'm used to people asking me to design.
So again, what's the total acreage of those 5 ponds? I don't have a architectural scale with me, so I can't tell.
Yeah, I mean,
Are those
I don't either.
lots in the cul-de-sac? Are those half-acre lots in the cul-de-sac in the straightaways where it bends off down south? Are those half-acre lots?
No,
All of the lots are 10,000 square foot lots.
10,000 square foot equates to what in y'all's
They're-
world?
They're bigger than that, Michelle, and some of them, because they fan out.
On the one at the bottom?
Yeah, some can be, you know, 14, which is just under 0.5 acre. But the, you know, where the pond is, that's just the water, you know, level. There's obviously some slopes and everything to the pond. So I'm just trying to guess that it's, you know, I don't know, you know, probably there'll probably end up being a total of somewhere around 5 acres of ponds on the side, I would think.
Okay.
Something like that, because there's 50% of the site now is undisturbed, and then 50% has development on it. And then obviously the box of a house only takes up about 38% of the lot as far as impervious and everything. So I'm just guessing it'll probably be somewhere, you know, close to that 5 acres. I mean, we have to make sure it doesn't affect downstream, you know, as part of the Rockdale code.
Well, and that's where we need to work together. You need to
Right.
look out for your neighbors that are south of you.
Sure, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I'll be speaking with you further regarding Inline and Cowan Farms, but I appreciate your time today.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Thank you,
Thank
Cheryl.
you for letting me contribute.
Absolutely.
All right.
Right. Well, we thank everybody for being on the call today. I know that this has been a long process for many of you all. I know that it has not been seamless. We've had bumps and challenges along the path. But, you know, we're hopeful that one way or the other, we can see some resolution to this. I think everybody is probably a bit tired by now, but I know that you all love your community, you care about your community, you're out here because you care about your community and you want the best for it. And so we appreciate your time this evening. If you have any further questions, if you want to direct those to me, feel free to email me at MLB, like Major League Baseball, MLB@battlelawpc.com, MLB@BATTLELAW, P as in Peter, C as in cat.com. Or you can also, if you reach out to me, or you can reach out to Ken Wood at Planners and Engineers, and we will be happy to respond to any final questions that you may have. Otherwise, I suspect we will see some of you all next week. The Board of Commissioners meeting is on Tuesday at 10 a.m. I will tell Ms. Susan, we will update the site plan, or at least put in that we have to have that buffer at a minimum of 100 feet along that one side to match what we've got on the other at a minimum. And that will be the change that we will make with regards to that. Everybody have a great night, and thank you so much for coming out. And if you need a copy of this video, because I did tape it this evening, if you need that to share with anyone else, just again, send me an email and we'll be happy to pass it along. Thank you.
Okay.
So they knocked another 25 off? Did I understand that right?
Not today, no. I mean, it's still at 150. It was 175 in July.
Oh, okay. So the last meeting that we all went to, they knocked it down to 150.
Yeah.
Okay. I still don't get why commissioners feel like they have to make these people so much money.
Hey,